eli5. How do wooden items like tables and house structures not rot? Wood is a lot more durable than a lot of people think. To rot it needs to be wet and consistently wet. And even then it takes a while. A felled tree, even exposed to the elements day in and day out, takes years to rot. Keep wood inside and dry, away from the elements, and it'll last a very, very long time. The cells in growing trees coat themselves in cellulose fibers and a glue called lignin to make a strong structure that will carry the weight as the tree grows bigger. That cellulose and lignin material, wood, can endure long after the living cells are gone. Rot is caused by a combination of moisture and bacterial fungal action. Wood that's used for furniture has been dried, typically, to a point that it's stable. Even dry, unfinished wood will last a long time in a climate-controlled environment. Rotting of wood requires fungus. Fungi are the only things with the enzyme that breaks down cellulose in wood. Fungus requires moisture. Keep the wood dry. Soak it with oils. Coat it with a paint or lacquer to keep moisture out. Or make sure it dries quick by keeping it in a dry environment. It will last a very long time. It's all about moisture and airflow. When something is dried, it can stay good for much longer. With wood, for example, you coat it or you treat it with something like linseed oil. This oil displaces the moisture in the wood and keeps it from rotting. Most wood used in furniture or doors or whatever is treated, lacquered, and/or painted to withstand the time. The wood is dried. No water means no life. Then the dried wood is painted, stained, or otherwise treated to keep water out. As others stated, the wood does not rot because it is dry. Rot is caused by bacteria and fungi which need water to develop. Think of mummies. They are dried bodies and they lasted for thousands of years because they have been dried in the desert. It needs water and oxygen to rot. Most furniture is dried, and then usually coated further to protect it using lacquer, wax, oils, etc. There are preserved trees and boats deep in the oceans due to a lack of oxygen. They stay dry. Wood framing generally is protected from the elements and stays dry. Wood furniture kept indoors is the same. Dry climate helps. I live in a city that's 3,500 feet above sea level that gets far more sun than rain. It's super dry here even in the spring, summer. Lots of wood siding here that is 40 years old and still in great shape. Wood is made of cellulose, a polymer, plastics, which is more difficult to break down than animal cells which are made of lipids, fats. Wood is mostly made of a natural plastic, not very durable compared to clear plastic soda bottles but extremely durable compared to the carcass of a dead animal. When protected from water and sun, it can last hundreds of years. Paint, varnish, and other sealants are not just for show. They are hardware. They are the first line of defense from the elements. Why is no one mentioning oils and lacquer? Wood rots. Period. It just does so very slowly. And the main ingredient for it is water. What repels water? Oil. What keeps water out? A layer of waterproof coating or lacquer. Impregnate your wood with the right oils once in a while, and you can keep it crisp for decades. Apply some lacquer once in a while, and IDEM ditto. Think of it like dried foods, but in the extreme. Water, humidity is needed for most microbial life. Without it, fungi and amoeba can't eat anything. Wood doesn't just rot by itself. Once wood evolved, it took a long time for some other things to evolve and realize they could eat it, which makes it rot. If you can keep your wood away from the things that like to eat it, insects and fungi, it will last for hundreds of years. Rotting is when little microscopic beasties, fungus and worms, munch on the tough stuff that holds wood together. All those things think wood is very tasty, but they can't live just anywhere. They need continuous moisture. Some need to be kept covered and away from oxygen, like maybe underground. The wood in tables doesn't get exposed to the kind of environment rotting beasties need. If you put your wood table outside in a moist place, it would start to rot too. The cells are dead, but the bones are still strong. Just like skeletons. It's a really tough skeleton. Well, they do. I have many friends in the business of fixing house structures exposed to rot. But to better understand how and when they do, a lot of people here answer that better. You give it positive affirmations every day to prevent it from becoming rotten. Like any living things, it's all love and peace, man. Most wood is treated or coated in a finish like varnish etc. for furniture, or pressure treated for structural woods. That's why they have a greeny tint. Also, structures are designed to have ventilation, which keeps moisture in the air to a minimum and prevents moisture settling for too long, which along with air causes rot and also damp. I whittle, and often I find branches that are wet or damp. I will let them dry out, and occasionally I get some with rot starting. But it's really rare to have them. I make staffs and canes and stuff, but I never use varnishes or anything like that. I consider those finishing touches, which should be done to more personalize an item. Wood holds up really well. As someone who has to replace the siding on the back of her house due to wood rot, it does. Some trees are more resistant to rot than others, and to improve resistance they are given a protective coating or layer to improve properties such as warping resistance and water resistance. Things don't just rot away by themselves. It's microorganisms eating them away, and they're just not present inside our homes since we clean them. If you want to leave woods outside, you better use dense wood like oak, acacia, exotic woods, or treat it against outside elements. The wood is dried up and then painted with special chemicals that prevent the rotting. Rotting is basically bacteria eating away at the wood. But to do so it needs to be wet. Otherwise they are unable to eat it. That's why wooden furniture that is left in moist basements etc. tends to start rotting. But it doesn't if it's dry. To the people saying, yeah, but what about woods outside like decking and such? Those woods are treated with chemicals. Very few types of wood will hold up to the elements without upkeep. I hope it's okay to add to this question. If there is a spot of wood that is rotted, does it spread to the rest of the wood? Fun fact: The entire city of Venice sits on top of millions of tree logs as a foundation. Venice documentary. https u2.be/b3 in p81 Nime. It has to be properly dried. After that it is very strong as long as it stays sufficiently dry. Paint and clear coat aren't just for looks, it is to keep fungus from eating the fibers. Stuff inside the walls are protected from the outside elements without a coating, but as long as the roof and siding hold up, will last centuries. This dude does a great job of explaining wood rot. In summary, it is caused by a fungus that needs moisture. https u2.be/2p9br1dol_a. Wood contains tannins which are naturally antibacterial. This is why wood cutting boards are superior to plastic. The reason petrified wood exists is because it takes bacteria for wood to rot, and that bacteria didn't exist until relatively recently. We treat wood so that bacteria can't live on it and make it rot. Houses do rot, in a sense. My dad was contractor and he was always doing dry rot repair. Dry rot is caused by several kids of fungus that eat away at the parts of the wood that gives it strength and stiffness. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/dry_rot #. Text equals dry %20 rot %20 is %20 wood %20 decay. Colored %20 deteriorated %20 and %20 cracked %20 condition. Architect here. When it comes to the wood used in home structures, it actually never gets wet. We designed the water shedding system specifically to make sure water never finds its way inside the home, and the wood studs remain dry. With furniture it depends on its particular use, but if it will be affected by the elements it will be treated with a sealer of sorts to limit any water absorption. Cellulose is one of the most stable natural compounds. And dry rot is not rot in the traditional sense, it's actually a fungus feasting on the wood. Sanding, staining and varnishing gives it a barrier to elements that would rot it, like the paint does. That's why you can sand off the top layer on some pieces and make it look new. First question for me: what does rot means? Plant cells have a wall. When the cell dies, the wall is still there and it will still be solid. Trees have had hundreds of millions years of evolution. They have certain defenses against rot. It needs something to rot it. Wood didn't always rot. In the beginning of time there was nothing that would rot wood, and that's why we have coal today. So keep the wood away from the stuff that rots it and it won't rot. You know how we still have old-growth forests in which trees are 1,000 years old? Same material. They do all the time. They just have to be outside or unpainted and exposed to damp and mold. Fixing rotted houses is a full-time job for somebody. Once wood is dried and cured, there isn't really any more cell stuff left. Just the cellulose structure remains. It isn't going to rot any more than hair would under the same environmental conditions. Home builder here. Waterproofing is key. I build in a very wet climate. It sounds weird, but you have to think like water. How could it get in and cause problems? Equally important is if it does get in. How will it get back out? Don't forget to share, like and subscribe for more content.